0, 1. Let's get started.
And a very good morning to you all, and welcome to another episode of the Black and White United Show. I'm your host, Andreas, and it's been a crazy couple of days for a Collingwood supporter. We know the race for Dan Houston is heating up. Carlton have offered their future first, future second in order to get Dan Houston. Collingwood have offered John Noble, for pick 13. Collingwood have offered Gold Coast, John Noble, and a future first for picks 13 and I think 23, I think it was. So you'd say that we're in front considering that we have what Gold Coast want in that sense. And also we're also in front with Port Adelaide considering that we've got what they want in Joe Richards. But it's been a pretty crazy 24 hours. I personally think that we are in front and that we will find out the result of the pick 13 either today or tomorrow. I have a feeling it's going to be later today, but it's either going to be today or tomorrow. Because you've got two players in Noble and Richards who need to get to their next destination. Let's face it. So pre-season training for the non-competing grand finals teams pretty much starts in a month's time or less, like the actual training component. Some of them are already started training and getting prepped up for pre-season. So there's really no time off in that sense. That you might get a couple of weeks if you don't make finals or whatever, and that's it. So I think Noble and Richards are obviously wanting to get into their new environment pretty quickly, and they've said that they want to go there. So in the case that they did it, they need to then come back to the club and start training. So they're probably training on their own and stuff now. Whereas if the deal just gets done, they can fly out and go to Adelaide, they can go to Gold Coast, and they can start and they can go to their new workplace, basically. So that hold-up's not from Collingwood. Gold Coast would obviously want to get Johnny Noble into their system pretty quickly, as would Port with Richards. So I would assume that any employer would want to get their staff in straight away. So that's my take on that. I reckon we're going to see something in regards to that pretty soon. The whole Tomlinson thing probably will happen after hearing Lepic's chat the other day. I've got a real feeling that that's probably going to happen, but like right at the end. Yes, I have a espresso and a latte there, so I'm just trying to wake up this morning processing all the news. Now, I did break this yesterday, literally like a minute before Channel 7 did it on my Instagram, but Jack Hayes from St Kilda. All right, let's push everything to the side. We obviously knew we were going for a forward. They've kept this under wraps quite a bit. But there was the feeling that there was going to be some sort of forward coming to the club. Now, I don't want to burst anyone's bubble. I'm in two minds at this. I've seen Jack Hayes play firsthand. I was at that round one game against St Kilda at Marvel Stadium. Now, that game in 2022, that was also Dacos' first game too. He tore us to shreds and he found himself in fucking great positions and he looked like a real gem of a forward ruck. And I remember saying to my old man after that game, like, fuck, this guy looked really good, blah, blah, blah. We didn't really see much of him after that. He had a couple of good games here and there and that was it. I'm excited by the fact that we're going to get someone dirt cheap. And if because we'll get him now. He's done a medical. And if you've done a medical at the Pies, let's face it, and you're a forward, regardless of what injuries you've got, you're probably going to come in, right? If he can get his body, and from what I've heard at the moment, he's in good nick. If he can get his body in real good shape and have a solid pre-season and not get any injuries, he is going to be banging down the door for a spot in this team. And this is going to put extreme pressure on Mason Cox, which is what you want, but I still think Cox is in our best 23. Anyway. So I don't think Hayes will play every game, and I don't think Cox is going to play every game this season. I think it's going to be a bit of both. That's provided that he gets his body 100%. Now, we're going to get this guy dirt cheap. Fantastic. That's great. This guy's strengths, and from what I've seen, and I've watched the highlights again from the game that I was there, this guy's movement with the ball is very similar to that of Brodie Grundy in the sense of, and this is from what I've seen, so you can agree to disagree or whatever, but I've seen it firsthand. The way, and you can watch the replay of that St Kilda game. It's all the highlights are on YouTube. I think Saints TV have put it up there or whatever it is, but I've watched it all, yeah? Just type in Jack Hayes. The way he was grabbing the ball and how smooth he was with it and his awareness of the players around him and his options and his quick handballs out of the pack, I was like, oh, hang on a second. Like, this is good. This is good. I'm not saying that Darcy Cameron doesn't do that, but if you've got a big guy who's able to bend over and pick up the ball and get it out and dish it out to, you know, a Quainer or both Dacos or someone running past, I mean, or like a Perriman in and under the pack with you, flicking it out, that's awesome. But his forward attributes, his skill in the forward line, right? Let's take out the ruck side of things for a second. His marking and the way he crushes the pack, it's like Kruger without getting injured, you know, and I'm all for that. If this guy can get his body 100% and he can sustain some really good form, he could be a massive difference for us. Now, we all put high hopes and stuff like that on players and God knows what, but if you're a forward coming to Collingwood, I mean, it's like the bogey fucking positioning of our football club. We haven't had a decent sort of forward, like a one-out forward probably since Travis Cloak. And, you know, McStay's going to do a good job. Checkers and Elliott and, you know, our other forwards, they're different types of forwards. You know, they're not, I don't think they're tall, big marking, clunk, Tom Lynch type forwards, but it is what it is. This guy can be that. This guy can be our, just a one out if he gets into that physique, that positioning, that if he gets his body to what we want it to be, he can be the player that we need. Now, that's the optimistic Collingwood supporter hat on, this, that point of view. I'm not taking my hat off, but let's just take the Collingwood hat off for a second. He's played 5 games and he's kicked 6 goals. He's polled Brownlow votes in close to 4 of those games, 3 or 4 of those games. He debuted against us. He's 193 centimetres, so that's 6'4", so that's a pretty decent size. And he's about 90 kilos. So, you know, he's there. Like, he's, you know, AFL level. So that South Australia Grand Final, if you watch it from a couple of years ago before he got drafted, I think he kicked like 6 goals or something like that in that game. I've seen the highlights and I remember watching the game with my old man. And he took the piss. So he's definitely at that AFL level. So I'm hoping that we can, if we pick him up and we get him, we sort of got to mould him into our style and what we want. And if he can continue doing that, I think he comes to the club, don't be surprised, and I'll call it now, don't be surprised if Ash Johnson and Kruger are not at the club come first day of pre-season. The way I'm leaning towards it at the moment, Reef will still be there in regards to like our forward dynamic and stuff. I don't think he's going to leave. I think we need the stocks just in case, because you know us, we get fucking riddled with injuries and God knows what. I encourage people to watch all the highlights of Jack Hayes on YouTube so you can see what we're in for, which is really good. the guys from South Australia, so it's really good that we're not like that. He doesn't want to go back home and he's happy to stay in Melbourne. So yeah, all right. Today, I'm going back to the main stories. The updates are Carlton have offered Gold Coast a future first and future second to get pick 13. We have offered Gold Coast Johnny Noble and a future first to get pick 13. That pick 13 is going to be on traded to Port Adelaide. I think we are just in front because, and as I said before, we have got what both clubs want. The whole thing about Dan Houston being a Carlton supporter when he was a kid or whatever they're saying and his relationship with Voss, at the end of the day, it means jack shit. He hasn't nominated a club, which means North Melbourne can still come straight in. But I would assume someone like him would be saying to Port, listen, I want to go to a club that's in a premiership window, and although North Melbourne could be in the next 4 to 5 years with what they've got, which looks really promising for them, Collingwood and Carlton are probably closer to a flag in the immediate future than what they are. Now, he's obviously going to make those teams 10 times better. I don't see how Gold Coast would take up Carlton's offer when we've got what they want. They're not offering much in this year's draft to them. So they obviously, Carlton are hell-bent on keeping their pick 11 or pick 12, I think it is now. So other clubs are going to look at that and think, well, it's a bit selfish. You guys want all this stuff, but you're not giving us what we want, so no. Houston hasn't nominated a club, which is what we want so far. We don't want him to nominate a club because if he does, then he says someone else, then Collingwood's just going to pull out and be like, no, now we're going to go do something different. So the way things are at the moment, I would say that we're in front. We will find out later today, if not tomorrow, what Gold Coast's decision is on that pick 13. I would be very surprised if they decided to go elsewhere. If we get that pick 13, you watch how quickly it will all happen. Now, the media would love for this to drag out as long as possible. They would love this to go because it makes stories, it makes headlines and stuff. But there are 3 players involved that need to get to their new environments pretty quickly. The deals could already be done, and they're just holding back a little bit until it gets released. But I don't think that's going to happen because these players are going to be spotted interstate at their new clubs by media and stuff like that. So I would be very surprised if anything happened like that without the story breaking. So it's going to happen either later today or early tomorrow. Gold Coast will make a decision on pick 13 and the dominoes will just flow. All right. You may get another video from me tonight. You may not. We'll see what happens. I implore you to watch other Collingwood content creators as well because everybody's breaking the news. Everybody's like taking their stuff with them and whatever. It's a crazy time of year, but this is really good. I'm still extremely confident as I was in my last video. Of course, Carlton are going to come up with offers. Carlton are going to come up with scenarios for Gold Coast and Port Adelaide and whatever. But as long as Dan Houston doesn't nominate a club, if he nominates Collingwood, then we win. But if he doesn't nominate a club, that's perfectly fine. It means North Melbourne, they're just there. Don't worry about it. Carlton, he's not going yet. But it would be nice as a Collingwood supporter to pip him at the post for a player. I'm still burning over 20 years ago when they got Mick Stevens, right? Well, we weren't going to give Didac to Port Adelaide, so fuck off. And also the whole bullshit with fucking Chris Judd. We had him at Collingwood, and Carlton came in and gave the brown paper bags and go fuck yourself. So anyway, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Houston, Hayes, Perryman's already in the side. We're improving our list. We've just got to get Houston in, and it's going to be some good times. Call it as you see it. Leave a comment. Go the Pies.